Hi, everyone. My name is Matt Haynes. I'm an audiobook narrator,
And I'm Trenton Bennett, and I am also an audiobook narrator.
and we're here to discuss accents. And as you prepare a book, because this is part of a series that we just started getting rolling with, how to prepare your reading before reading. So Trenton had some good ideas in terms of what to consider with accents. Trenton, what are your thoughts?
Well, the first thing I think is important is that when you make a choice for a character, you need to be confident about that choice. Now, I'm going to distinguish here. The accent is not the character. So, yes, there is an accent that you may have to apply when you're voicing a character's distinct voice, but that character is everything that goes into their motivations, what they're reacting to, what's the situation around them, and all of that has to be emoted through that accent. The accent is merely a filter that presents an aspect of their character. And I say this because it's understood because we're audiobook narrators that we are not fluent in every language, familiar with every dialect, and grew up in every region in the world. Just like an American actor taking the stage to do Shakespeare, it is understood that we are performing that character.
Right, right. And I don't want to make excuses to be lazy, but there are plenty of examples of actors in film, celebrated actors in film, who actually don't have a particularly sharp ear for different accents or a command of different accents. One of the classic examples I'm thinking of is Sean Connery, great actor, but in The Untouchables, he's an Irishman, and in Hunt for Red October, he's Russian. Irishmen don't tend to sound like this, and neither do Russians. But here's the thing, and this is what I want to touch on. Again, it's all about confidence making a choice. Sean Connery clearly is choosing to just be Sean Connery so that he can apply the best of what he does to that character. So he is making a choice to essentially just drop any attempt or pretense at expertise in a Irish accent or a Russian accent or goodness, even a Spanish accent if we go for Highlander.
Oh, yes.
Um,
Awkward.
yeah. Um, but he is choosing to be the character. And about 5 to 10 minutes into his screen time, what moviegoers are seeing is that character, and that character just happens to talk like this. So, what Trenton says about uh, being confident and bold with whatever choice you make, I would say yes. And make it something that you know you can be consistent with.
Yes.
If there's something about the accent that you feel is I gotta remember this, I gotta remember this, I gotta remember this. For example, the Boston accent can be very, very tricky. As you'll see in my video, and what I tell students is it can be very tricky because there's certain words that are an wah and certain words that are an ah. And it can be very, very tricky to keep track of what's what and when to say it. So if you have a character who's from Boston and the author says that they have a Boston accent in the text, it says they said with a Boston accent, maybe a good alternative is to simply dentalize the D's and the T's and remember to drop your R's. But don't worry so much about whether it's an ah or an or. Just stick with the dentalize D's and T's and drop your I's. Um, that's a good shorthand for Boston. Everything else, pour yourself into the character, the character, the character, and the listener will go with it. Uh,
That's a really good point, Matt. And I'd like to mention not just that when you do the character, It really needs to. There's a difference between being accurate and giving a performance. So, for example, most Americans, when they hear an accent, they might not necessarily want it to be a deep Boston accent because they might not understand it. They might have difficulty with it. The
Mm-hmm.
same with the South. If you're not really familiar with the Southern accent, you can get your westernized, Western movie type accent and you'll be okay. But you might not necessarily pick up on it if it's like a really deep Tennessee accent and you've never been to Tennessee. So the performance still needs to be kind of legible, if you will. And I'll give you an example of that as well. Um, in the video game industry, I read in a book about the making of the game Bioshock that one of the characters who has an Irish accent, the development team decided that they needed to recast the actor because they didn't feel like his Irish was authentic enough. And so the problem with this is that the actor in question was actually Irish. But the difference is he was not delivering a performance of, I guess, the Western or American audience expectation of the Irish accent. So it was a little less of that slight Yorkshire sound and a little bit more of the what we know from the commercial for the Lucky Charms. And that's really what they were trying to get at, but they couldn't necessarily say that.
Right, right, right.
And so they needed a different performance because of the audience.
And this, folks, this is another big thing that perhaps Trenton, you and I can talk about as well, which is the difference between a performance for a commercial or a quick spot versus a performance for a book.
Yes.
Um, but that is for another video. In the meantime, uh, as your narrator and teacher of narration, thank you so much for joining us, Trenton.
Thanks very much, everybody. It is my pleasure to help, and I hope this has been helpful to you.
And we hope that your ears and our voices meet again real soon.
Thank you.